So welcome back. We took a break and we come back. Glad you're with us another day. Kurt had just brought up previously Luke chapter 9, verse 20, where Peter says, Jesus, you are the Christ, the Son of God. And Kurt was talking about how we can answer that verbally, but really every day of our life, we answer this by the way that we live. And we're going to get back into that. And I completely agree with you because, and one, let me just also say, this is the most important question that any human on the planet can answer. And so I'll just ask all the listeners, who do you say that Jesus is? Is he a great teacher? Is he a prophet? Or is he who he said he is, which is Christ, the Messiah, Son of God? And I think C.S. Lewis is the one that's credited with it. You have to either say, because Jesus told us plainly who he was. There's no denying who Jesus thought. So either he's a liar and he was deceiving everybody, or he's a lunatic that thinks he's on the same amount of people who think that they're, like a zombie or, whatever, invincible. He's either that kind of narcissistic lunatic or he's Lord. And he told us he's Lord. We obviously, all four of us, believe that he's Lord, but I would encourage everybody listening, that's the most important question you'll answer. And here's the deal. It's not a one-time answer. Like, think of Peter right here. He said it here, and Jesus brags on him in the other Gospels. Says like, hey, this is not something that came from you. But then what does Peter do when Jesus is crucified?
He messes it up. He denies him.
Yeah, he denies him 3 times, so much so he even starts cursing himself, saying, let me be accursed if I actually, about as far extreme you can imagine. And so in that moment, he was again answering the question, but it wasn't, even when he answered wrong, God didn't cut him off and be like, you're done. You messed up. You denied me. I'm done with you. Peter got another chance with more days of his life to continually answer this question. So I want to try it because I think this is a really important question for us to figure out, and not to figure out in its entirety tonight, but to really think about, okay, the average human who is not a pastor, not a youth minister, not a song leader, not a deacon, or even if you are those, but how do you proclaim Jesus as Lord and the Christ during the tiny details of your day? How do you do that?
That goes back to Colossians 3:17. Everything we do it as if we're doing it for the Lord.
Yeah. And so my question, really though, how would we, if I get home tonight, Brittany's exhausted, started a new job, she's dealing with 3 kids, putting them to bed right now, and she says, hey, Tribe, you do the dishes. How can I do those dishes in a way that says Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior?
I think doing them at all is a start.
So the correct answer should not be, nah, woman, that's gonna wait till tomorrow. So is that not the right answer?
That's a start.
I can't deny you. So what would be the finishing part of that? So we got the start. What's the finish?
I mean, you got to do them to the best of your ability.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, y'all heard me all during our Kingdom Basketball League. I was trying to get them to understand, when you're playing basketball, play it for the glory of God. Play it so people look and they're like, hey, that guy plays so hard, or that girl plays so hard. There's something different. Why are they playing so hard? And why are they playing so differently? Why do they have a great attitude? Why are they giving the other team a high five when they make a good play? And that comes back to for us as old people, we don't get to play basketball anymore. We get to wash dishes. And so when I get home and I'm handed, the dishes in the sink,
Slam dunk.
The dish, that's a good idea, because if I dunk more dishes, there's less to wash tomorrow, because they will, hey, we're gonna be, so, and I could wake up the whole house and be like, what is going on? Be like, hey, I'm washing these dishes because Jesus Christ is Lord. Watch this explosion. No,
Yeah.
but it comes to one, do I wash them well? Do I actually try to get the hard stuff off, or do I just shove them in the dishwasher? But second, that's going to come down to my attitude.
No grumbling.
Yeah, am I doing it the whole time and I'm just chewing on my bottom lip because I'm she has no idea, I've been out doing blah, 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 and I got home late and I don't want to do the dishes. If that's my attitude, well, that's not doing it for God. That's not doing it in a way that says Jesus Christ is Lord. And that's like, and I use dishes as an example because that's one thing that I don't know. Has anybody ever said they enjoy doing the dishes?
I like doing the dishes. I don't like putting them away.
Are you serious? You like washing the dishes?
Yeah.
This is breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
What is wrong with you?
I'm getting like scrub stuff off.
I know, but why would you like that?
You get to like.
I bet you taste a little crust and stuff.
You got a little elbow grease behind it, but you get satisfaction of like there was this my wife may have tried to scrub this stainless steel and still got that kind of discoloration.
Now we're
But
getting
I
to
get
the
after
heart of
it.
it. So
And,
what it really is I'm better than Savannah.
It's one-upsmanship is what you enjoy, not dishes.
Well, okay, so Jeremy is the one human on earth who likes washing dishes. But so what's another example? Like I said, when you go to work, and we all have we have similar. So Jeremy is now a teacher, and Kurt's a PE teacher. Dad is a construction worker, and we won't even get into my job right now. But like tomorrow at work, how can you go to work and by the way that you work, answer the question Kurt brought up from Luke 9, who do you say I am?
Well, first of all, I think it's what do you actually believe first? Before I'm showing that to other people, what am I doing when nobody can see me? So for me, I work at an elementary school. And you should know that if you don't work at an elementary school, the worst place in the world is an elementary school boys' bathroom. It's the worst place in the world. It's terrible. But if I go in there and I'm by myself and I see paper towels on the floor,
Yeah.
Do I pick those up? Or do I just like, that's really gross and I don't want to do that?
You know what? I'm going to pat myself on the back for a second. I was in your school a couple of months ago, and I walked into that first boys' bathroom, and all the kids are in class. And I walked in there, and there was just paper towels. It looked like they had rolled the bathroom.
Yep.
And I was like, not my school, not my problem. But I was like, come on, try. And I did. I went over there, and I picked up the paper towels, and I put them in the trash can. And the little boy walked in, watching me do that. He was like, and I think he looked at me like, wow, that man made a big mess.
Well, I think that's where it starts is, do I believe enough to do this thing that I don't want to do when nobody else is going to see it, nobody else is going to notice, nobody else is going to care? Do I believe in Colossians 3:17 enough to do that on my own before I ever try to show anybody else? And I think that's a big step you have to take before you start even worrying about other people, is how much do I believe on my own when nobody else is looking?
Yeah. And you'll really get an idea of what you actually believe when nobody's there to watch. Right. Nobody's there to pat you on the back. Nobody's there to say, oh, look at that guy. He's such a good man. It's just you, the Lord, and a dirty boy's bathroom.
Yep.
All right. So that's Kurt's example. All right. So as a construction worker, what could you do to answer this question?
Well, I actually have a man on my crew that is a preacher, Mr. John, and he exemplifies it better than I do. Everything he does it with a good attitude, like he's loving it, even if we're digging ditches or whatever. And his attitude, I want my attitude to be like his, because everything we do, he's always upbeat about it. He's never aggravated about it. I hadn't seen him hit his finger with a hammer yet, but everything else is just, his attitude is just almost the perfect attitude of anyone you ever had working for you. Now, I look at him, I think, I won't be that way, because when I go around the corner and catch a couple fellas on the phone, chapping, snap.
Yeah, that's close enough.
On the phone, and I have to be careful, or I can, go the wrong way of the conversation. But I usually just be calm about it and say, fellas, we need to go back to work, because if we're not working and we're goofing off, we're actually stealing money. And they always look at me like, yeah, that's true. You're getting paid to work 8 hours. You're not getting paid to play on your phone for an hour late. That's taking money because you're saying you're working when you're not. And trying to keep them to realize that what we're doing, even though it's just construction, we're working to make a name for ourselves, but also as a Christian, we should also be making a name for ourselves. We work. I try my best to keep my attitude right, but Mr. John really takes the cake with that.
Yeah, I think I would be like pushing that big, like as a construction worker, the idea that the finished product should be like almost an offering. And it's really sad, like, especially in our church. Our church is actually really pretty and had a lot of detail and stuff done into it, but we don't have any Sistine chapels going up. And finding that balance between, like, okay, what is just extravagant and over the top, too much money put into a building, but at the same time, hey, I can't do a lot of things, but maybe I can paint really well, and I want to use that in a way that helps God. So, Jeremy, what would you encourage people when they roll into a high school?
You got to exercise that patience muscle every day, dealing with teenagers. And remember that you don't know what their life is like outside of high school, and that you may be their best shot at Jesus, or just getting love from somebody. And there's a lot of times when I give them all instructions on a project we're going to work on, and they look like they're really not paying attention, but I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I say, "Are you guys paying attention?" Yeah. And I get done with all the instruction, and within 2 minutes,
what'd you say? What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, hands are up. I don't know how to do this.
Well, I'm glad to see that high schoolers haven't changed.
And it's staying calm. It's almost like ignoring that I've already told them that, not reminding them of, hey, you weren't listening. Just tell them again, like I never told them before.
If you don't enjoy repeating yourself, then teaching is not for you.
Yeah.
Well, and I've got news for you. We were all the exact same way or worse when we were in high school. And if you don't believe it, just go get around a group of adults. Adults behave just as bad or worse than most of our students in school do. If you give a group of adults some instructions one day and see how many of the 10 of them are like, wait, what'd you say? And how many of them pull their phone out when they're in. Anyway, let's don't get too far down that rabbit hole. But, one of the next verses down is one of the most famous verses of the Bible. It's Luke chapter 9, verse 23, where Jesus says, anyone who would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. And I think it fits really good, even though there's a section in our Bible there. It's really a continuation of the verse that Kurt pointed out in verse 20, because Kurt said, you're going to answer this question every day. And I think we need to realize that, like, we are answering that question when we wake up in the morning and we get our kids ready. When we go to work, we're answering that question. When we come home with our family again, we're answering that question. And it comes down again to daily deny ourselves and take up our cross. And let's be honest, we don't like denying ourselves. Ourself likes nice things, and to do nothing, and to spend money on ourselves, and to take my time. And I think if we could ever get that figured out, not even figured out, if we could just truly believe that enough, if we could believe what Jesus said enough to actually do it, then we could really change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we follow it on. The next verse says, whoever wants to save his life will lose it. I don't know how much more plain Jesus can make it. If you're trying to do everything for yourself, you're failing. But you have to do it for me.
Well, and if you go one verse further in 25, it says, for what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? And that took me back to Ecclesiastes when we were reading through that last year in the reading plan. And I've talked about it in one of my sermons, but the writer in Ecclesiastes says, look, guys, I've literally done everything awesome that you think you could do on this earth. I've done it all. And at the end, it's striving after win. You're never going to be satisfied. You're never going to catch this elusive feeling that you're looking for in the things of the world. And Jesus comes back and says the same thing in the New Testament. So in thousands of years, this concept hasn't changed. The things of the world will never satisfy. And it's cool that you can go back all the way back to Ecclesiastes and see the same things that Jesus is still preaching in the New Testament.
And you can fast forward to today, and especially in America, we have the idea of work hard, get more, always more, and more. But we look around, all these people have all the money you could ever want, and they're not. That is what happens when you hit the wrong thing. And
I thought that was a message from God.
at first I was like, it's a gong, let's wrap this thing up. It's gone way too long. Let's end this. But for real, we have all these people who they have all the money they could want. They have, you name it, the fame, the glory, all these things. And they're not satisfied. They're not happy. They know there's something else. And the Bible tells us all the time, don't chase. But here's the deal. How many of us are steadily chasing that stuff still? Like, we read it in the Bible. We know it's not going to happen. We read it in the New Testament, Old Testament. We see people today in the world who are going after those things and it's not working. And yet we tend to go after those things too. We're steadily trying to get more, make more money, retire, get a car, you name it. We're trying for those things.
Well, and you're trading in the ultimate satisfaction for something that you can't get anyway. It's the worst trade in the world.
Yeah, I heard a sermon on this today, and it may have been, I'm not going to say because I don't remember who it was, but he said, imagine if you're an immigrant and you're in America and you're told, hey, you have this backpack, you're going to work, you're going to have a good job, you're going to have a really good job, but you can only take this backpack and nothing else with you. You can, however, invest your money in a bank over at the country you came from, and it'll be there waiting for you to get back. He said, if that was the situation you lived in life, how many people would be like, oh, I'm going to buy a nice car, or I'm going to fill up my whole apartment with all these nice paintings, or I'm going to do all. He's like, no, you would be working in America, and you'd be filling that bank account up. And yet here we are, and we're told this. Right there, these verses, we're told this is not the end goal, and you can actually pay it forward to an eternal reward, an eternal investment, but we don't do it. And when I say we, I really mean me. Like, I'm one of the ones that all the time I find myself, okay, hey, ooh, that's kind of nifty. I want to buy that. And it's just junk.
Yep. It comes back to where's your treasure? Because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what my treasure is, that's what I'm after.
We got a little too close to home on that one. We'll need to change it up. I don't like stepping on my own toes. All right, so anybody got anything before verse 57? Or are you ready for me to jump into it?
Well, go ahead, Buster.
I just got a question. When he says, deny yourself and take up your cross daily, how do you think that come across to the people at the time? Because when we read about cross, we understand, Jesus talking about his cross and all that. But how do you think it come across them at that time? Because I'm looking at it, I'm thinking that's kind of like saying, deny yourself and take up your electric chair daily here, because.
Or deny yourself and go sit on death row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty morbid, right?
I don't know how they would take it.
As far as how they might take it.
I was wondering, when I was reading, I'm thinking, well, really, what is our life? Bible tells us it's just a vapor. It's here for just a short time. Francis Chan gave the example of a rope and a piece of tape on it. We're so worried, as we've been talking, we're worried about building up whatever, and then we forget. Won't we build a legacy of when we're gone? People say, I remember old Buster, he told me about Jesus one time. Or, somebody said, well, I remember old Buster, I'd run him off my land. He was hunting out of season and shooting penguins or something.
Wow. With a spotlight at night, huh?
Yeah, but
old penguin poacher.
Yeah. But
Penguins.
But deny everything that's comfortable for us. And wow. I mean, what would really
reject your life? Yeah. Like, even if we got to a point where we could reject trying to chase money and fame, we're still going to have a part of us that's like, do whatever it takes to live. Don't give up your life. And Jesus says, no, give it up. Like, give it to me, and then you're really going to have life. Once you get to a point where you are not trying to take care of it yourself and you turn over to me, then you're really going to be living.
Well, you were talking about how they might receive that, him saying, take up your cross daily. You get down to verse 44, and he actually says, let these words sink into your ears. The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men. So not only is he telling them to take up their cross daily, but he's saying, I'm about to die. And you guys don't understand that. Y'all don't realize yet that this is not a worldly kingdom that I'm coming to take over. I'm actually about to die. And it's not just taking up your cross as a means of what we're doing every day. Things are about to change here, and y'all need to understand that. So not just the morbidity of here and take up your cross daily, but the morbidity of, hey guys, I'm about to leave. Y'all need to understand this. This is happening.
Yeah, and they didn't understand it.
No.
And if we were there, we wouldn't have either.
Yeah.
Right.
Verse 45.
We'd have been like, oh man, that's a really good metaphor that he used there. He's talking about taking up your cross. Yeah, we should actually, sacrifice our lives. What a good metaphor. No, literal.
This sounds good.
All right. Jeremy, you had something you want to jump into?
Well, I was trying to figure out what to preach on last week, and the other story that I thought about doing, but I really, to tell the truth, I was scared to do it, was Transfiguration.
Oh, why were you scared about that one?
Well,
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Was it the problem of time traveling Moses?
Yeah, that's the interesting part.
Wait, so if you die, you can come back to Earth?
Well, the latest theory that I heard is Wesley Huff was it wasn't Moses or Elijah that was time traveling. It was Jesus that was time traveling and somehow was there with them, because when Moses,
and he took Peter, James, and John with him.
Well, they were down kind of a little bit lower,
but they saw it.
Yeah, but why them?
They got to time travel like the Avengers.
No.
Okay. You sure?
I think they saw like the orb.
So they were like looking through the portal at what was happening on the other side.
Yep.
This is getting real. I understand why you didn't preach on this.
Yeah. It's pretty deep, but
bet we could have all kinds of good phone calls later after you finished up that one.
Yeah, you got to know your stuff to preach that, and I did not feel equipped for that. And like Peter wasn't equipped to understand what was going on. He was wanting to build tents for all three guys, and then God comes down and he's like,
yeah, Peter was actually
Jesus.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, this is what was
he basically tells Peter,
yeah, this is my son, my chosen one.
Listen to him.
He's better than Moses. He's better than Elijah.
And Peter was a man with words too, real wisdom. He said, Master, it's good that we was here.
No kidding.
Peter's like, hey guys, this is kind of crazy. What if I built y'all a house real quick?
No, like, I could just see like James and John looking at Peter. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Like, it's good we're here. No kidding. Yeah, I completely understand why you didn't want to jump into that one. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go into, and it's kind of a continuation of this entire chapter, on and off. But in verse 57, we get into what exactly the cost of following Jesus is. And I'm not going to read it, but I'll kind of paraphrase. But this guy rose up to him and he says, Jesus, I'll follow you wherever you go. And Jesus' response is, foxes have holes, birds have nests. I'm not going anywhere. Like, I have nowhere to go. I have no home. There's no fancy bed that I'm going to lay down in. I have nothing. And then so this guy says, hey, I want to follow you. And Jesus is like, no, you don't. Here's all the reasons why not. And then here comes another one. Jesus goes to him and says, hey, follow me. And the other one says, hey, first let me go do this. And Jesus is like, no. You don't go bury dead people. Follow me. Quit worrying about dead people. And, you're the last one, I guess I'll go ahead and say it. But he says, Lord, I'll follow you. But first let me go home and say goodbye to those in my house. And Jesus is like, no. This is the famous, whoever puts his hand to a plow and looks back does not fit. All of those are hard. And like, they fly in the face of everything that like I grew up in church, where we tried to make it as easy as humanly possible for people to join the church. Here, say this sinner's prayer real quick before you change your mind. But if you look at what Jesus actually did, he didn't, like, so the guy comes and says, hey, I want to follow you. Well, he comes back to him and hits him in what I would assume is the thing that he struggled the most in. And Jesus is like, do you really want to? What about this? And I just wondered, like, if we had that same like mentality in church before somebody walks down and they're like, hey, I want to give my life to Christ. And we're like, great, quick, say this and fill this card out before you change your mind. All right, we got a new salvation. What if we said, but hey, have you really counted these costs yet? Do you really understand? Like, have we taught you well enough for you to know what you're actually doing? And I have not done that, and I think I need to. I think I need to start doing that.
We talked about this at the youth a couple weeks ago. It might have been a month, but we get this idea of a prosperity gospel of, hey, you can come follow Jesus. Everything's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. But what does Jesus actually tell the guy? The guy comes up and says, hey, I want to follow you. And he's like, hey, you realize this is going to be hard, right? Like, this is not easy. This is not fun. This is not something that you're going to do on a whim. You have to count the cost. And
yeah, and it's not like this is a weekend thing.
Right.
Like, it's not like, no. If you're in it, you're in it.
Yep.
It's not a do it for a little while. Oh, man, that was so fun. Remember that time we hung out with Jesus for the week? That was great.
Yep.
It's not that.
So Jesus isn't begging this guy to follow him. He's not saying, hey, what do you need me to do so that you can follow? Jesus doesn't say that. He's like, hey, dude, this is hard. And the thing that you're afraid of, that's part of this.
Yeah, he's Savior and Lord. He's not a beggar.
Right.
Like, Jesus is not going around, please accept me, please follow me. And it's almost counterintuitive, because the people who come to him and are like, hey, I want you. He talks them out of it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, over and over in the New Testament, Jesus talks out. The rich young ruler shows up. He's like, go sell everything you have. And I imagine the disciples are like, what are you doing?
Well, he approaches them, like you said, at their biggest fear.
Mm-hmm.
The thing they value the most that they're going to have to give away.
Well, and it goes back to those verses we read. Like, if you're going to say I'm the Christ, you're going to have to pick up your cross and follow me. Whatever it is that you're holding on to. And that's what, like, these verses here, this just popped in my head. You know, you take them, and the guy comes, he's like, let me go bury my dead, I think, father first. Let me go bury him. And then you have the other guy, let me go tell my family goodbye. Whatever it is, if you're like, hey, I'll follow Jesus if I can do this. Whatever's on the other side of that if, like, I'll follow Jesus if, whatever is about to be on the other side of that, that's your real guide. Mm-hmm. And Jesus is pointing at that out to people. He's saying, you say you want to follow me, but you're saying you'll do it after or if you do these things. That's your real guide. And you've got to get rid of that in order to follow me. And he does not make it easy on them.
Well, and leave the dead to bury their own dead sounds super harsh. But in this culture, it was the job of the oldest son to care for the father as they're dying. And so he's telling this guy, your traditions and the things in your culture that you think are important are not more important than following Jesus. If your religion or if your culture or if the things that you believe get in the way of you following Jesus, like you said, that's your God.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Jesus.
Oh, yeah. And we beat up on the Pharisees a lot for having like their religion as their God. We do it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even realize we're doing it the same way they didn't realize they were doing it. Do you have something over there?
Yeah, I was just looking at when you said, leave the dead, let the dead bury the dead, and, leave folks alone. And as I was thinking this, now my mind is a little different for everybody else. So,
you don't say.
So, yeah, even my voice, I've heard myself on the radio. Ooh, it ain't good. But anyway, I read the Bible sometimes, and I'll shift my mind into not neutral, but I just let my mind play with the scriptures, and I think about different scenarios and things. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, maybe there's a message inside the message Jesus is telling us. Why do we need to go say goodbye to our family? Why do we need to go check on the dead? I mean, it's kind of like, where's your relationship with the people you're with every day? Why don't you have things where there's nothing unsaid when you left? If y'all notice, Jackie called me a minute ago. We got a phone. I love you too. We leave nothing unsaid to each other.
You sounded like that was like really important to you just then.
Yeah, but
I love you too.
But I was also thinking about talk about the dead. I remember watching my daddy die. I sat there. One of my sisters said, "Well, you can wake him up. I give him a shot to let him rest." So you can wake him up and talk to him. I said, "I have nothing to say to Daddy. Me and Daddy have nothing unsaid to each other." So I just sat there until he took his last breath, and I'm thinking, that's the way we should be with our relationships. When we leave home or whatever, we should leave with really nothing unsaid. Everything that I have to tell you, you should know. And that way, this thing may be a lot easier. And once again, this is my mind playing with the scriptures.
Let me put a nice little bow on all this. Like what you're saying there, be ready when the moment arrives, when Jesus arrives and he has this thing for you, be ready for it. Because you've been living your life every day answering the question, who is Christ to me? And if you live that way, our life ends up being where things have been said because I've been in my home answering the question of who is Christ by how I relate with my family. Same thing at work, same thing wherever we go. And then once we've gotten to where we're picking up our cross daily and following him, when we get down to Jesus says, hey, it's time to do this radical thing, or hey, it's time for you to leave Earth and you're going to die and come be with me, we're good to go.
Yep.
All right. I think that's a good stopping point. Jeremy, you got one more thing over there?
I think an important question to answer is the cost of following Jesus related to salvation?
Explain a little bit more.
Well, I guess I was trying to make it softer, but I think it's important to point out that the following Jesus part is not necessarily salvation.
Oh yeah, like the going to church, reading the Bible.
No. I'm saying this is more about discipleship, in my opinion, being a follower of Jesus.
Sanctification.
Yeah, the sanctification process.
So you're saying you can't do anything on the front end, all these things to be saved. You're not doing the heavy lifting in salvation.
I'm saying that just because these people came up with these excuses doesn't mean that they lacked salvation, that they weren't believers. No, they were just immature.
Yeah, they could have just not been fully sanctified yet. And this was Jesus working.
Because you got the guy on the cross next to Jesus.
Yeah, it totally could have been, because this could have just been the next step of their sanctification process. Right. Whereas like me, I may be looking at it and be like, why is he worried about burying the dead guy? And I'm the next guy that I'm like, oh, let me go tell my alive family that they're good. Just like, nope, that's your thing right there.
Yeah.
And like, we're all at different levels of sanctification. I think that's one of the things that's so important, that we don't start judging each other, because Jeremy, you may have had a sin that I never struggled with. And so like, I'm sitting over here all high and mighty and haughty toddy. And I'm like, oh, Jeremy's such an immature believer because he's struggling with that. He should be way past that by now. But I've got a different sin that you've never struggled with. And we're all at a different point of our sanctification process. And we never need to be assigning them like, wait a second, because they haven't been where I've been and they're not where I am, they're not saved.
Yeah.
They're just in a different spot with Jesus, and we can keep discipling on that.
I think this passage is important for pointing out the actual cost of following Jesus, but we don't need to get it confused with the actual salvation process. Yep. Like the guy that had to go bury someone, that doesn't mean he wasn't saved because he said he had to go bury somebody.
No way.
Well, it speaks to a divided focus.
Yeah.
And that at the end where he says, no one who puts his hand in the plow and turns back is fit for the kingdom of God. If we're not laser locked in, focused on that one singular thing that we're chasing, we run the risk of a divided focus that pulls us further away from where we need to be. It hurts our sanctification. So it's more of a delayed sanctification than a lack of salvation, is what you're saying.
Because if you're plowing and you turn, you're not going to be plowing in a straight line.
Right, and that's where the illustration comes in, is you have to focus on a thing that's far away to keep your line straight.
Yep, I like it. Good stuff. Well, thanks everybody for listening to us. It's getting kind of late here on a Wednesday night. Hopefully we'll have this out by midnight, the first one, and the next one on Friday. So good luck to me on getting all that done. I guess one of the things like why we do this is, one, we're trying to make sure that we all have certainty and we're learning more about the Bible, even if we can't say everything on a Sunday morning or night. And even if we can't say anything here in this setting too, there's still things to learn from Luke chapter 9. But we're doing it because, one, we love God. We love talking about the Bible. We love each other's company. None of us, I don't think, are thinking we're any kind of great theologians sitting down here. I know I'm not. But we stay after church on Wednesday night and we just have a good time. And we enjoy you guys listening. Please continue to listen. Share it with somebody if it was useful. And I usually pray us out, but I want to change it up a little bit. Kurt, you want to pray us out of here tonight?
I'll do it. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity, Lord, to sit down with these guys and just dive into your word and see what we can do, Lord, to honor and glorify you, Lord, and live a life that fulfills the purpose that you gave us, Lord. I pray that each person listening to this, Lord, would take even just one thing that we said here tonight and apply it to their life and use it for your good, Lord, and for their own good as well. I pray that you would just take this podcast and use it, Lord, for your glory and for your honor. In your name, amen.
Amen.